I didn't know what betrayal smelled like until a Tuesday night in Ohio. Lasagna still steaming when Laura looked across the table and said she was leaving me. For Trent. Madison froze. Jacob crushed his napkin. Emily kept coloring because 4-year-olds don't know what it sounds like when a marriage breaks in half. I didn't throw a plate. I remembered my father's rage and I chose the opposite. I cleared the dishes, tucked the kids into bed, and started a different kind of fight. The kind you win with calendars, receipts, and a binder thick enough to stop a bull. By morning, Michael, my attorney, my friend, had me standing in family court. I became what my 3 kids needed: steady. The next day, the judge called my name, but not for the reason you think. If you've ever stood in your kitchen with 3 sets of eyes waiting for you to stay solid, you know. Stick around. Subscribe. Tomorrow, I'll share the fight no man should have to face alone. So when the plates were still warm and the weeknight felt normal, Laura cleared her throat and said it calm as asking for the salt. I'm leaving. I'm with Trent. The room shrank. Madison stopped mid-bite, eyes locked on Laura like she was trying to read a storm. Jacob wound his napkin so tight it squeaked. Emily kept coloring a sun with a purple crayon, humming. Because 4-year-olds don't hear fault lines. They hear dinner. I felt the old animal in my chest wake up, the one that kicks chairs and slams doors. But I kept my hands flat on the table. The lasagna smelled like garlic and endings. I didn't ask why. I already knew. Late yoga, new perfume, long showers after longer drives. I said nothing because anything loud would land on 3 small hearts, not on hers. Laura stood, grabbed her keys, and walked past the calendar where I'd written Pancakes Saturday. The door opened, then closed. The house breathed out. If there was going to be a fight, it wouldn't be in front of my kids, and it wouldn't be with plates. Because I wasn't going to repeat my father, I pushed back from the table and started with small, boring things. I cleared dishes. I wiped the counter. I handed out second servings of bread like nothing had changed, even though everything had. When Madison said, "Is Mom?" I shook my head and said, "I've got you." When Jacob asked if I was mad, I told him I was steady. Emily wanted 2 bedtime stories. She got 3. In my head, I could still see my dad punching a hole in drywall back in '92, white dust floating like snow while my mother cried in the hallway. That kind of loud fixes nothing. It just teaches kids to freeze. So I chose quiet. After lights out, I walked the perimeter like a tired security guard. Windows latched back, gate locked, blue front door, tested twice. I wasn't calm, I was determined. There's a difference. Anger is a fire. Control is a thermostat. I turned mine to hold. Tomorrow I'd need clarity, not heat, and 3 kids would be grading me before any judge did. Holding that line for myself meant holding it for them. Madison, 12, going on 30, shadowed me to the sink and started rinsing plates without being asked. You don't have to be the grown-up, I told her. You get to be a kid even tonight. She nodded, but the set of her jaw looked familiar. My face smaller, braver. Jacob hovered by the blue door, sneaker toe scraping the threshold. If Mom leaves, do we still have pancakes Saturday? He asked. We do, I said, and put the griddle on the counter, like proof. He relaxed a notch, the way boys do when plans stay put. Emily carried her picture to me. A son, a house, 3 stick figures, and 1 floating away. She didn't know what she'd drawn. I taped it to the fridge anyway. At bedtime, I sat on the floor between their rooms reading until my voice thinned. Madison whispered, "You're not going to yell, right?" "No," I said, "I'm going to show up." And that's the job now. Less explaining, more showing. 1 steady night becomes 2. 2 becomes a week. A week becomes a life. When the house finally slept, I called Michael Carter, the friend who's also my lawyer, and right now, my breaks. He answered on the first ring. I told him what happened. He listened like a man writing a map. "Okay," he said. "First thing, start a notebook. Times, dates, exact words. Not feelings. Facts. Second, freeze the joint accounts tonight. You'll unfreeze what's fair later. Third, screenshots, emails, photos of the calendar. Back them up." I stared at the kitchen clock. "Do it now," he added, "then sleep." He wasn't pushing me toward a fight. He was pulling me toward order. "Tomorrow, we file for emergency custody," he said. "Judges care about stability. Be boring, be early. Pack lunches, take notes. I could do boring. I'm good at boring." I opened the laptop, changed passwords, printed statements until the printer coughed. I set the new spiral notebook by the coffee maker with a pen, the first thing I touch in the morning. Michael finished with "Talk soft. Move fast. Keep the kids' world small and safe." The call ended. The kitchen felt less like a crime scene, more like a plan. By the time the house went quiet, the bed felt too big. Her pillow still held the faint, clean smell of shampoo, the kind I used to notice on Sunday mornings when we were fine or thought we were. Grief is a strange roommate. It moves your stuff around and leaves the lights on. I lay there counting the things that still worked. The furnace kicked the fridge hum, the nightlight in Emily's room casting a soft moon on the hallway carpet. I let the sadness pass through like weather. Then I sat up and wrote in the notebook, Tuesday 9:47 p.m. Laura said she's leaving for Trent at dinner in front of the kids. Madison froze. Jacob twisted napkin. Emily kept coloring. No adjectives. No blame. Just the record. I added plan lunches packed. School drop-off by 7:35. Call Michael 8 Huru. File. I turned the page and wrote 3 names. Madison, Jacob, Emily. Under each one sentence about what they needed tomorrow. The pillow was still empty when I lay back down. The bed was still big. But the morning finally felt close. Morning finally came and it was all lists. Coffee, backpacks, printer ink on my fingers. I left the kids with Mrs. Nguyen next door for 20 minutes and drove straight to family court in Columbus with Michael Carter riding shotgun, his briefcase buckled like a 4th kid. The building felt cold and permanent, the kind of place where excuses go to die. We moved through security shoes back on paper stacked square. Michael spoke low and simple facts first. No color, no blame. I signed where he tapped date time, full name, David Morrison in the box they use when you mean it. The clerk stamped each page and didn't look up. That's fine. I don't need applause. I need a clock that keeps time and a judge who likes order. Michael filed for emergency custody and asked for the soonest possible hearing. Go be dad, he said. I'll call. On the way out, I ran my hand over the rail just to feel something solid. We didn't win anything yet. We started the race, and for today, that had to be enough. Starting is good, but a promise is better, so I went back to the house, loaded lunches, and beat the school traffic by 10 minutes. The car line snaked around the lot, teachers in safety vests, waving like runway crew. Madison stared ahead, quiet, thinking 5 steps past me. Jacob bounced his heel against the floor mat. Emily hummed to herself, missing the words. Before the bell, I turned and said it out loud, I'll always be here. Not the version where you over-explain and they stop listening, just the simple one they can carry into math. Madison nodded like she was filing it. Jacob asked if I'd still make pancakes Saturday. Extra chocolate chips, I said. Emily held up her stuffed giraffe so I could kiss it too. They climbed out 3 backpacks and 1,000 reasons to get this right. A dad behind me in a work truck gave a small wave. I gave it back. Then I watched my kids walk through the doors like normal kids do, and I let that picture sharpen my resolve. Resolve is easy in motion. It gets slippery in silence. Back home, the house didn't echo, it tested me. The blue front door stuck the way it always does after rain, so I shoulder-checked it shut and set the notebook on the counter. I did the small things that say, we're okay. Washed lunch containers from yesterday, swapped the HVAC filter, stacked the mail by the fruit bowl. The dog 2 houses down barked at a squirrel and stopped. I checked my phone, didn't see Michael, checked it again, like a man testing a smoke alarm that won't chirp. In the afternoon, I walked the perimeter fence, latch garden hose, gate lock, like a line cook checking stations before dinner service. On the fridge, the Saturday Square read, pancakes in block letters, a promise I could keep without a judge. That helped. Around 3, the quiet felt heavier. I made coffee I didn't need and stood at the sink staring through our patio door at a sky that couldn't decide between sun and storm. I told myself out loud, steady wins. Then the phone rang. Michael didn't warm me up. He didn't need to. David granted. Emergency temporary custody. For a second, I couldn't find air, like the room forgot how lungs work. Then everything came back at once, the tick of the kitchen clock, the drip from the faucet, the smell of coffee turning bitter on the burner. Say it again, I asked. He did slower. He went over the next steps, visitation terms, documentation to keep building. But all I could hear was my kids' laughter echoing down the hallway last summer when we painted this house and argued about the right shade of blue for the door. I set the mug down and put a palm flat on the counter, steadying myself the way you do when the ground under you finally stops moving. You did the work, Michael said. Now keep doing it. I thanked him and hung up. Then I took the marker and traced over pancakes on the calendar, darker this time, like carving it in. I stood there listening to a house that suddenly sounded like home again. The house finally sounded like home again, but peace has a way of leaving a note on the fridge. Don't forget the bills. Routine snapped back in homework at the table cleats by the door. Saturday pancakes sizzling like a promise kept. Madison teased Jacob about his syrup flood. Emily asked if the blue door was extra locked. I said yes and meant it. Still under the good noise, something scratched. The mortgage auto draft felt heavier than it should. The checking balance looked thinner, like a belt pulled one notch too tight. I told myself it was the court fees, the extra groceries, the gas for all these school runs. But fathers our age know the difference between busy and bleeding. After bedtime, I opened the laptop at the same kitchen counter where everything blew up. The room smelled like coffee and crayons. I pulled up the bank dashboard and took a breath the way you do before stepping on a scale. If we were building a life on stability, the numbers had to tell the truth. I clicked statements and started reading. The truth didn't shout. It trickled. 3 transfers, each clean and round, to an account I didn't recognize. Dates lined up with late yoga nights I'd tried not to question. Memo lines were blank, which says more than any explanation. I scrolled back month by month and felt that old animal stir. Then I gripped the table and stayed put. This wasn't the night for stories. It was the night for facts. I took screenshots. I wrote the amounts in the notebook, big block numbers like a math teacher who wants you to show your work. I called the bank and asked for a trace, kept my tone steady, like Michael taught me. The rep gave me a ticket number and a wait time. Fine, I'm good at waiting when it protects my kids. Before I logged off, I highlighted the dates and circled them twice. The pattern wasn't proof yet, but it was a map. Maps lead somewhere, and this one pointed toward Trent's side of town. I didn't love where it was going, but I wasn't going to blink. Maps lead to doors, and doors have addresses. I dug through our shared email, the cloud folder where we stored house stuff, and a PDF popped up I'd never seen: residential lease agreement. 2 months old. Complex name I recognized from a billboard off the freeway near Trent's building. My jaw didn't clench. My pen did. The dates overlapped with the transfers. The signature wasn't mine. The emergency contact number wasn't mine either. I enlarged the page until the pixel edges went jagged and wrote the unit number into the notebook. Then I checked the complex website garage, parking pet-friendly, a photo of a lobby that looks like it sells confidence by the pound. I printed the lease and slid it into a clear sleeve, the kind Michael likes for court top right corner square label straight. In the margin of my notes, I wrote, address equals anchor, emotion drifts. An address parks the truth. Somewhere between our kitchen and that lobby, a story I didn't choose got very specific. Specific is useful. Judges like specific. So do fathers. Specific is also where debtor's math starts. I checked our credit portal and saw hard pulls. We never discussed cards. I never swiped balances that wore my name like a borrowed jacket. Applications tied to the apartment email. Limits that matched the transfers like rungs on a ladder I didn't climb. I remembered those glossy mailers we used to toss a percent APR instant approval and how easy it is to sign your future away in a quiet kitchen. I didn't curse. I didn't pace. I wrote every card name, last 4 digits, open date, current balance. I pulled statements where I could requested the rest and flagged accounts for fraud review if they crossed a line. Michael's voice stayed in my ear. Facts, not thunder. I wasn't chasing guilt. I was building a record. Men my age know credit isn't just numbers. It's whether your kid gets braces on time, whether the old Camry starts in January. I stacked the pages, breathed slow, and underlined one sentence. These debts will not live in my children's rooms. Then I turned to the printer. Printers don't care about heartbreak. They just eat paper and spit evidence. I fed it leases, transfer statements, screenshots, printed 2 to a page so a judge could see the dates without squinting. The machine's hum filled the kitchen like a steady engine, and I found comfort in that mechanical, boring, reliable. I 3-hole punched every sheet and slid them into the binder Michael made me buy on day 1 black cover, D-rings that snap like a promise. I labeled tabs banking, credit, housing, communication, handwriting, square, and slow. By the time I finished, the binder had weight, not metaphorical, real weight. Put it on a scale and you'd get a number. Put it on a table and the table respects it. I set it beside the calendar where pancakes glowed like a lighthouse. 2 anchors, one for the kids' hearts, one for the court's eyes. I clicked the pen closed and felt the room settle. This wasn't revenge. It was rescue the quiet kind. I wiped the counter, locked the blue door, and placed the binder by the coffee maker. In the morning, it would be the first thing I touched. By morning, the first thing my hand found was the binder I'd left by the coffee maker. It felt heavier than last night, like paper can pick up purpose while you sleep. I flipped the tabs banking, credit, housing, communication, and added fresh notes with a black pen that didn't skip. Each page clicked into the rings with that small metal sound I've started to trust. This wasn't about burying Laura. It was about building a floor my kids could stand on. I wrote clean dates, dollar amounts, places. No adjectives. Judges don't need my feelings. My kids don't either. I added copies of the email receipts stapled neatly so nothing slides out, and stuck a Post-it on the key pages Michael will want first. When I closed the cover, the binder thudded against the counter, and I liked that. Real things make real sounds. I slid it into my bag next to lunch money and a Ziploc of crayons. If there's a fight today, it won't be loud. It'll be 3 holes, straight edges, and ink that won't smear. The binder gave me facts. The wall calendar gave me rhythm. I grabbed the markers we keep in the junk drawer and set the code. Blue for school drop-offs, pickups, picture day. Red for court deadlines, filings, calls with Michael. Green for appointments, pediatric counseling, oil change, anything that keeps the system running. I filled the squares like a foreman laying out shifts. Pancakes stayed on Saturday in thick block letters. That mattered. On Sundays, Michael swings by in his F-150 to fix squeaky hinges and drink bad coffee with me, so I wrote that in too. I made sure every kid can read the week at a glance. Madison likes to plan. She'll check it twice. Jacob calms down when boxes get checked. Emily just wants stickers, which is fine. I left room for those. When the calendar was full, the kitchen felt less like a waiting room and more like a shop floor before opening. I stepped back, capped the markers, and said it out loud. This is how we win. 1 square at a time. 1 square at a time turned into 1 sticker at a time when Emily padded in with her hair a mess and her stuffed giraffe under one arm. She spotted the fresh chart on the fridge and lit up. We added a simple row for her, make bed brush teeth shoes by door. She picked star stickers with glitter and pressed one onto the first box with serious 4-year-old concentration. Look, Daddy, I did my bed. The whole kitchen warmed up a degree. You'd think a star wouldn't matter, but it does. It's a little picture that says, we finish what we start. Emily asked if she could do 2 stars for helping with spoons. I said that's tomorrow's star, and she nodded like we'd just signed a contract. I snapped a photo, printed it small, and slid it into the binder's communication tab, not as evidence against anyone, evidence for us. A judge may never see that photo. My kids will. Shoes by the door, I said, tapping the chart. She raced off socks, slipping on the hardwood, and came back proud. Emily's pride carried us into the next test, Jacob and the empty chair at breakfast. He stared at it like it might explain itself. 8 is a hard age for quiet losses. I slid a plate in front of him and set the spelling list by his juice. We've got quizzes today, buddy, I said, pointing at Bridge, answer, quiet. He tried to joke about pancakes early, but his eyes kept dragging back to the chair. I didn't fill the silence with speeches. I gave him a pencil and a timer. 1 minute. Go. He wrote fast tongue at the corner of his mouth, the way he does when he means business. He missed answer, forgot the silent do. We fixed it, and high-fived like it mattered, because it does. When the timer beeped, I tapped the calendar. Blue box, 3:15 pickup. I'll be there. He nodded a small click back into the groove. I dropped a copy of the list into the binder. Routine proof, the quiet kind. The chair was still empty. Jacob wasn't. That's progress I can use. Jacob's pencil still warm in my hand. I turned and found Madison loading the dishwasher like a shift manager, stacking, wiping, scanning the room for what I'd missed. 12 going on 30 is a compliment until it isn't. I've got lunches, she said, reaching for the bread. You've got math, I said, sliding the loaf back toward me. She bristled, then hid it like grown-ups do. I leaned on the counter, so she had to meet my eyes. Your job is to be Madison, friend, sister, student, not backup mom. She held my stare, tested my resolve, then softened an inch. I gave her an assignment she could own without losing childhood, check the calendar each night, and text me anything I forgot. She smiled. Systems are her love language. We added her initials next to Science Project Thursday, and she liked that. I tucked a note into the binder, M responsibilities right-sized. Before we left, she taped Emily's sticker chart a little straighter and laughed at herself. The house felt lighter. 3 kids, 1 dad, and a plan that doesn't break them to save them. That lighter feeling followed us to the park, and I didn't question it when it showed up. I just made room. Madison chased Emily down the slide, and for the first time since the kitchen night, she laughed. Not the polite kind kids use to keep adults calm. A real one, loose and bright, the kind that makes strangers turn their heads. Jacob called dibs on the swings and pumped his legs like he was trying to kick a cloud. I stood by the bench with a travel mug and let the scene do its work. A dad next to me in a ball cap nodded the universal "I see you." I nodded back. We talked about nothing youth sports fees, the mower that won't start, because that's how men hand each other oxygen. When the sun dropped, I checked the blue box on the calendar app park after school. 1 square completed. On the walk to the truck, Madison slipped her hand into my elbow, like she used to when she was smaller. "Thanks for today," she said. "We're just getting started," I told her, and meant it. Just getting started became the cue to open the laptop after bedtime and call Michael. He answered with the same steady face he wears in court and in my garage. "How'd the park go?" he asked. "We had a win," I said. "Good," he nodded. "Now protect it. Routine is your shield." He walked me through the next week like a coach drawing plays on a whiteboard counseling appointment. Set teacher emails, saved receipts in the binder, the clockwork of pickups and drop-offs, never missing a beat. Courts care about 2 things, the kids and the pattern, he said. Build the pattern. Be boring. I almost laughed. Boring is my superpower. We reviewed the tabs, banking, credit, housing, communication. Then he reminded me to sleep like I was fueling for a long drive, not a sprint. Before we hung up, he added, "If she reaches out, stay civil. Document, confirm, move on." I closed the laptop and checked the front lock out of habit. The house was quiet, but not fragile. A machine humming. A ship holding a line in steady water. The ship held until Tuesday afternoon, when my phone buzzed between Jacob's homework and Emily negotiating for a second snack. Laura need to talk. Route 66, diner 8 p.m. I stared at the screen long enough to feel my pulse climb, then took a breath and set the phone face down. I poured milk sounded Ale Mountain with Jacob and tied Emily's ponytail again because the first one sagged. Only then did I text Michael a screenshot. His reply arrived 2 minutes later. "Go. Be on time. Don't take bait. Document." I told Madison Aunt Sarah would sit with them, and she gave me a look that said she's 12, but reads like 25. "I'll be back before your bedtime," I promised. She reminded me to bring my binder like a small project manager who knows the stakes. I slid the message thread into the communication tab and printed the screenshot date, time, location evidence that the evening started with civility. The kids ate grilled cheese. I ironed a shirt I didn't care about. The clock moved slow and then all at once. 8 was coming. 8 was coming, so I did the small things a man does when he's walking into a storm on purpose. I shaved close. I changed into jeans and a clean button-down. I checked the mirror and saw a face I recognized, older at the edges, steadier in the middle. Not a hero, not a victim. A father who pays the light bill and holds his tongue when it matters. I thought of my dad's drywall from back in '92 and told the man in the mirror, "We're not doing that." The blue door stuck when I tested it rain in the forecast, so I lifted and pulled until it sealed. In the garage, I grabbed the binder keys and a pen that writes even on cheap paper. I texted Michael leaving now. He answered, "2 rules, speak plain, leave first." Aunt Sarah arrived with a bag of snacks and a hug that said she gets it. I kissed 3 foreheads and pointed at the calendar box labeled Dad back 9:30. "See," I said. "See," Madison echoed. I stepped into the evening air like a man made of oak. Oak helped when the diner's red neon buzzed like a hornet's nest. I parked under a light and walked in with the binder under my arm, not like a weapon, like a tool. The place was half empty. Truckers working coffee, a teenager wiping ketchup bottles, the kind of music that makes you remember jukeboxes. I chose a booth with a clear view of both exits because that's what Michael would do and what my gut wanted anyway. The vinyl seat gave a small sigh when I sat. I kept my hands on the table, fingers open, posture neutral. The waitress came by and I asked for water. My voice sounded normal in my ears. I checked my watch, 7:58, and set the phone to vibrate, camera on, if needed, notes app ready. The door chimed once, twice, then again. At 8:12, Laura walked in, perfume first, a practiced smile second. I didn't stand. I nodded. She slid in across from me like nothing big was coming. Something was. I felt the binder's weight on the seat beside me and let it speak for me for now. The binder said, "Be still." So when Laura finally swept in perfume, first, history second, I stayed seated. She moved like someone who expects the room to adjust. The The red neon painted the edge of her cheekbones. The waitress set down my water and retreated like she knew better. All right then, Miss Hayar. Laura slid into the booth across from me, placed her phone face down, with the camera pointed away, a little habit that used to live in our kitchen. You look tired, she said, like concern could erase the last few months. I didn't answer. I kept my hands open on the table, fingers apart, just like Michael taught me. No fists, no fidgeting. Up close, I could see the seam where her mascara met a late afternoon, and I felt that old reflex fix soothe solve knock on the door. I didn't open it. The binder on the seat beside me had weight, and weight is steadier than impulse. The door chimed again behind her. Coffee hissed somewhere out of sight. I took one breath through my nose, smelled diner grease and her new fragrance, and let the quiet do the heavy lifting. Quiet did its work. She filled it. We don't have to make this hard, David. We can start over. She tried on a softer voice, the one that used to sell summer vacations and new paint colors. Kids need 2 happy parents, she added like a line from a magazine. I watched the words float between us and refused to catch them. Starting over sounds clean until you remember who sweeps. I asked the waitress for another water, bought myself 10 seconds, and thought about my dad's drywall from '92 and my own blue door from last week. What does start over mean to you? I asked, keeping it plain. Laura smiled at the sugar caddy like it might help. No more courts, no more drama. We moved past the mistakes. In the reflection of the window, I saw my truck under the lamp, steady as a dog waiting by the porch. I nodded once. Not yes, just I heard you. Then I reached down, slid the binder onto the vinyl, and set it on the table between us like a level set on a crooked board. Laura's eyes flicked to the cover. Mine didn't. I opened the rings and let the metal click announce the next part. No raised voice, no speech. Paper instead of volume. I turned to banking and placed the first sheet in front of her. Dates, amounts, 3 neat transfers, no adjectives. I slid over the log from my notebook, times exact quotes, the kind of handwriting a judge can read in bad light. Then housing the lease PDF with the complex's address near Trent's office unit number, circled contact, not mine. Her perfume held steady. Her jaw didn't. I could feel the booth settle under the weight of printouts, like it knew we weren't here for pie. I didn't stare her down. I looked at the pages like a man reading a weather report before a long drive. These are choices I said my voice even, not stories, not moods. The waitress drifted close and drifted away, a pro. Laura tapped a nail against the laminate once, twice, like she was trying to find a rhythm. The binder didn't tap back. It just sat there and told the truth. Truth got colder with the texts. I turned to communication and laid out screenshots, names cropped for privacy, timestamps left intact. Keep our names off it. Use my email. He won't know. The diner's hum pressed in, but the words on the paper were louder. I slide-stacked the bank statements in order like shingles on a roof, each one covering the last, all of them pointing the same way. Lease copy on top, emergency contact in Trent's handwriting. I didn't ask questions I knew she'd dodge. I didn't fish for the apology she couldn't afford to give. I let the pile make its own argument. A trucker coughed. A spoon clinked. Somewhere someone laughed at a joke we couldn't hear. Laura reached for one page, thought better, and pulled her hand back like the paper might burn. You went through my things, she said, finally finding heat. You're always collecting, watching, controlling. I kept my gaze on the dates, the totals, the signatures. When a roof leaks, you track the water, not the weather. I turned the final page and rested my palm flat. The laminate felt cool. Her voice sharpened the way a knife sounds on a stone. This, she swept a hand over the stack, is exactly why I left. You control everything. You pushed me to this. The words didn't surprise me. They'd been waiting in the wings since the kitchen night. Blame is a smokescreen men my age know well. It fogs the room so you forget the fire. I didn't chase it. I stayed in the clear air over the paper. Yeah, boy. I'm controlling dinner time and school pickup. I said plain as salt. These are your signatures. She rolled her eyes, the old move, but the diner's neon didn't flatter it. You think you're righteous, she snapped. You think a binder makes you a hero? No, I said, still calm. It makes me a father. I slid the visitation schedule across, next boxes checked. Mrs. marked the quiet ledger that matters to judges and kids. Her jaw set, then wavered. For a beat, the perfume couldn't cover the crack in her confidence. The bell over the door chimed again. I didn't look up. The next part was coming, and I was ready to let the facts lead. That bell over the diner door rang once more when she left, and I let it close the scene. I paid for the water, drove home under those old streetlights, and walked in like a man who knows where the creaky floorboard is. Aunt Sarah mouthed, "All good." I nodded. Madison was waiting on the stairs in pajamas, hair pulled back like she'd tied her courage with it. "Dad," she asked, voice steady in that way kids use when they're not, "you're not leaving us." "Right." I sat on the step below her, so we were eye to eye. "No," I said, "I'm not going anywhere." Not a speech, a promise that fits in a backpack. She studied my face like a referee checking the ball, then let out the breath she'd been holding. Jacob peered around the banister, pretending he wasn't listening. Emily snored from her room, the kind of sleep 4-year-olds get when they run hard. I kissed foreheads, traded Aunt Sarah's hug for the night, and walked the perimeter windows back, gate the usual circuit. One more check before lights out. The house held. It held because we held each other. Madison hugged me longer than usual in the hallway. Jacob asked for a second glass of water, just to stick close, and Emily turned over and mumbled something about pancakes. I tucked the blanket around her shoulder and let my hand rest there an extra beat. Then I did what I always do when the day's been loud. I checked the locks. The blue front door gave its sticky resistance from the rain, so I lifted and clicked the deadbolt until it gave that clean, certain sound. I stood there for a second with my palm flat against the paint we'd picked together last summer. Home isn't a floor plan, it's the door you can close on purpose. I wrote a single line in the notebook on the counter, back by 9:18. Kids settled. Then I turned off the kitchen light and listened to the house breathe. The furnace kicked, the fridge hummed. Somewhere a train sounded 3 short blasts, and I thought, good, everybody's doing their job. I set my phone to Do Not Disturb and let the quiet finish the night. Quiet lasted a week, the good kind made of school drop-offs, cleats drying by the vent, and Emily's star stickers marching down the fridge like a tiny parade. Then the world knocked again, this time through my phone. Michael sent a link with no comment. Marshall Financial Senior Portfolio Manager terminated amid embezzlement probe. Below that, another alert: DUI arrest license suspended pending hearing. Trent. I didn't say a word. I set the phone face down and cut apples for snacks like this was any other Tuesday. A dad's job is to be the same on the good days and the bad ones. After homework, when the house settled, I read the articles top to bottom. Dates, amounts, how the firm froze accounts to stop the bleed. I underlined sentences the way I used to mark boards before a cut measure twice cut once. I didn't feel triumph. I felt confirmation. The map I'd drawn had a legend now printed in ink by somebody else. I told Michael thanks. He wrote back, "Eyes up. Patterns collapse fast. Desperate people surprise you." I locked the blue door and set the notebook out. The next morning, the radio filled in what the articles missed: assets frozen apartment sees the kind of public unraveling that starts with a press release and ends with a storage unit. I poured coffee and stared through the steam at nothing in particular, just listening. You learn a lot by not rushing to talk. People called Trent brilliant last year. This week, they were saying reckless and over-leveraged words that sound like the same thing when you're the one paying the late fees. I folded the paper and slid it under the binder, not as a trophy, as a footnote. Then I went to work lunches, emails, a quick text to Mrs. Chen about Jacob's spelling test. Stability isn't dramatic. It's the boring mile that gets you to the next exit. After dinner, I stood at the sink and thought about how fast a life flips when it's built on shortcuts. I didn't pray for anyone to fall. I prayed for my kids to stay upright. The blue door stuck a little more from the humidity. I turned the latch and heard the bolt seat home. You can feel tides turn without needing a weather app. At the next supervised visit, Laura showed up on time, mascara neat, but the edges were different. The designer purse was gone, replaced by something off a rack next to the checkout line. The jacket didn't match the shoes. That's not judgment. That's inventory. She kept glancing at her phone, then at the kids, then back at the clock like she was trying to hold 3 futures in one hand. Emily offered her a sticker and got a tight smile. Jacob showed a spelling quiz with 1 wrong answer, and she said good job in a voice that didn't decide if it meant it. Madison watched everything with that quiet math she does. When we traded the kids back, Laura held my eye a second longer than usual, like she wanted to ask for something and couldn't yet. I didn't step into that space. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're rails. In the driveway, Madison asked if we could bake banana bread. Yep, I said, and preheated the oven. Flour, sugar, eggs, things that come together if you follow the steps. Banana bread cools fast when gossip warms up. 2 days after we baked, the texts started trickling in from a neighbor who knows a guy at the firm, from a dad at baseball, from Aunt Sarah, who reads everything. Word was Trent packed a bag, cleared a drawer, and disappeared between a Friday afternoon and a Monday morning. No goodbye, no forwarding address, just vacuum. I didn't chase the story. Stories change by dinner. I rinsed measuring cups, folded dish towels, and let facts catch up. Still, even steady men hear a low hum when the ground shifts under someone else's house. Madison asked if we could save the end piece of bread for tomorrow. Jacob wanted to take a slice to his teacher. Emily asked for extra butter because 4-year-olds believe butter fixes most problems. I wrapped the loaf and wrote the date on the bag, the way you do when you plan to stretch groceries a week. If Trent was really gone, gravity would tilt. When money and attention dry up, people reach. And when people reach you, keep your distance and hold your line. Holding my line meant calling Michael before the rumor hardened. He picked up on the first ring like he knew why I was there. I gave him the bullet points, vanished, no contact whispers about unpaid rent, and a car left in a garage. He didn't comment on Trent. He commented on patterns. When a source dries up, he said, people scramble. Desperate people do desperate things. You'll stay calm, document, and keep the kids' world small. That's your job. He had me walk the plan again out loud. Drop-offs on time, supervised visits documented, any messages saved, no late-night debates on the porch. And if she shows up, I asked. Lights on, phone in your pocket, speak plain, no openings. He reminded me to set the door camera to alert my phone, then told me to eat something that isn't coffee. I laughed in spite of myself. Seriously, he said, protein and sleep are strategy. We hung up and I looked at the clock like a man checking the tide. Routine was still the waterline. Whatever storm was out there, my job hadn't changed. My job hadn't changed, so I did it. Dishes stacked, lunches prepped, 2 slices of banana bread tucked into baggies for tomorrow, 1 for Jacob's teacher, 1 for the bus ride, because Madison negotiated like a lawyer. After teeth and stories, I made the rounds. Emily sprawled across her bed, star stickers stuck to her elbow. Jacob snuggled his stuffed football under his chin. Madison left her science notes out like a breadcrumb trail from desk to pillow. The house exhaled the way good houses do. Furnace, low refrigerator, steady a far-off train drawing a line in the dark. In the kitchen, the smell of banana bread still hung in the air, warm and ordinary, like nothing bad ever happens under decent lighting. I wiped the counter and set the notebook next to the coffee maker with a pen on top, tomorrow's first move. Then I locked the back gate, clicked the deadbolt on the blue door, and killed the porch light. I told myself the same thing I tell the kids, we're okay. I meant it. And then, right on time for a life like this, someone knocked. The knock wasn't shy. 3 hard raps that rattled the frame, then silence that let doubt sneak in. I checked the time, 11:57, and felt my shoulders settle into the rules lights, on phone, on voice low. Through the sidelight glass, I saw a shape I know better than I wish I did. Laura. Perfume first, the same one that used to mean date night, and now means problems. Mascara already smudging. I didn't open the door. I cracked it 3 inches chain set and kept my hand on the frame. It's late, I said level. Behind me, the house held its breath, the hallway nightlight, the soft wheeze of the HVAC, a crumb of banana bread still on the counter like a witness. Laura's eyes flashed the way people's eyes do when they're choosing between tears and anger. She picked tears. Please, she whispered, leaning into the sliver of space. I need to talk. I didn't fill the silence. Silence lets the truth choose its shape. She chose fast. Trent's gone, she said. He cleaned us out. I made a mistake. Then she picked the bigger one. Let me come back. Let me come back hit the chain with a thud, and I let it sit there. I kept my hand on the doorframe the way a man keeps a truck from rolling firm, not angry. The kids are asleep, I said. This isn't the time. Laura's face shifted from begging to bargaining in a heartbeat. We can fix this, David. I'll be better. I'll show up. I just need... The sentence never found an ending. Need is a bottomless word when money and promises are gone. I thought of Michael's rules, plain words, no openings. Family court set the terms, I said. We follow them. Her jaw tightened. Tears dried into heat. If you won't let me in, I'll take you back to court. You can't keep them from me forever. I didn't rise to it. I let the system speak for me. Supervised visits. Counseling. Then we talk. She tried the old move reach for my arm, softened the voice. I eased the door closed until the latch met the strike plate clean. Good night, Laura. Her heels ticked down the walkway. Inside the house, breathed again. Boundaries held. Boundaries held and holding meant keeping my hand on the frame. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. The court decided I said steady as a level on a board. We follow that. Laura searched my face for some old version of me, the fixer, the soft touch, but all she found was a dad who locks a blue door on purpose. Behind me, the house stayed quiet, the way good houses do at midnight. A nightlight drew a yellow square on the hallway carpet. The furnace breathed. Somewhere Jacob's stuffed football hit the floor and went still. "Don't make this harder," she whispered, aiming for guilt. I didn't bite. "This is me making it easier." I answered for the kids. It wasn't poetry, it was policy. I kept the gap small. The chain set the rules simple. No porch debates, no last-minute deals. If there's a path forward, it starts in daylight and on paper. She tried one more look that used to move me. It didn't. I kept the frame. The frame kept the line. The line kept the kids. Lines invite tests, so the next thing came sharp. "Then I'll take you back to court. You can't keep them from me." Threats always arrive like weather, loud, fast, promising a mess. I let it pass over. "You already have a path," I said. "Counseling. Show up to visits. Stick to the schedule." She wanted me angry. Anger is easier to argue with. I gave her policy again. Michael's voice lived in my head. Plain words, no openings. Laura pushed anyway, tossing blame like handfuls of gravel money. Time I control my notes. Notes. Yes, I take notes. Men my age take notes because memory is a slippery witness, and kids need a record, not a story. "I'll see a judge," she said. "So will I said with the binder. We stood there, 2 lives and a chain between them. I felt my palm pressing the door, not shaking, just firm. In the driveway, the porch light showed the same cracks in the concrete that were there last summer. They hadn't grown. Neither had I not in the old way. I'd chosen different. Choosing different looks like paper, not posture. I pictured the binder on the counter by the coffee maker, each tab a layer that turns drama into dates. Banking transfers amounts the clean math. Housing a lease with an address near Trent's office. Communication missed visits marked pickups logged, teacher notes, counselor summaries, the Saturday squares that say pancakes and mean we keep our word. Judges don't hug you for this work. They trust you with kids because of it. I thought about Jacob's spelling list, Madison's science project, Emily's star, stickers, how all of it is the real argument. You build a shield out of show-ups, not speeches. Laura said something I didn't catch, then repeated it louder, like volume could make it true. I stayed with the record. "If you want more time," I said, "do the steps." It sounded boring. That's the point. Boring keeps a roof over small heads. The binder weighed nothing in my hands right then, but it still pressed down on the moment. Facts are heavy in a good way. They hold. So I held. Holding meant finishing. "Good night, Laura," I said, and I let those 3 words carry the rest. I eased the door until the latch met the strike plate with that clean, honest sound a deadbolt makes when it's seated. I kept my palm on the paint a second longer, the same blue we argued about and then laughed about when it dried too bright in July sun. Through the wood, I could hear her heels hit the walk, pause, then fade toward the street. I didn't watch through the window. Watching invites second guesses. Instead, I turned, checked the side lock, set the alarm, and picked up a crumb of banana bread I'd missed. The house exhaled. The clock over the stove clicked to midnight. I wrote one line in the notebook, 11:57 p.m. Door knock. Request to return. Threat of court. Response, follow orders. No heat. Just the ledger. I rinsed the cup in the sink, wiped the counter, and let the kitchen go dark. A man can sleep when a door is properly shut. It's a different kind of tired, the useful kind. Useful tired turns into a steady morning. The sky came up the color of old t-shirts, gray and soft, and I made coffee strong enough to stand a spoon. Before the first sip, I looked at the wall above my desk where the court order hangs in a plain wood frame. It isn't decoration, it's direction. The judge's signature sits sharp as a nail head. Sole legal and physical custody to David Morrison, not a trophy, a tool. I traced the edge of the frame like a carpenter checking a corner. Then I set the mugs on the counter and packed lunches, turkey for Jacob PB&J, for Emily leftovers for Madison because she likes real food. The kids came down in a slow, yawning parade. "Dad, you're early," Madison said. "I'm steady," I answered. We checked the calendar. Blue, red, green added a smiley next to Pancakes Saturday. and taped Emily's new star over yesterday's box. I slid the binder into my bag. The blue door stuck, then gave. Cold air bit my face. Good. Awake beats angry. We stepped into the day under rules that hold. Rules held yesterday. Today they have to hold in a room with a seal on the wall. I lay out clothes like a man packing for a job he already has. Dark suit, clean shirt, the tie that behaves unless my hands don't. Coffee tastes like purpose when the house is quiet. Madison's lunch goes in the blue box. Jacob's in the green. Emily's gets a smiley note because 4-year-olds read pictures better than words. I knot the tie once, twice. It slips like a fish. Third time it stays even if my fingers show a little shake. That's fine. Steady isn't the same as stone. I check the binder tabs, square pages flush, and run the morning in my head like a pre-flight drop-off courthouse testimonies pickup. A text from Aunt Sarah. We've got the kids lands like a sandbag on a tarp. The blue door sticks, then gives. January air wakes me up faster than coffee. I lock it, touch the court order frame once on the way out, and tell myself the same thing I told the kids. Be boring, be early, be there. Be there turns into Michael, waiting by the steps with a file box and a look that says this isn't his first morning like mine. We don't shake. We stand shoulder to shoulder and watch the doors. 2 things he says, voice low. Let the evidence talk. She'll play emotion. He points to the box. You've got rhythm drop-offs, notes from teachers, counseling reports, the calendar. That's your language. Speak it. I nod and he studies my face like he's checking a level. If she cries, you breathe. If she blames, you answer with dates. If she makes you the villain, you hand me the tab with the missed visits. We're not here to win feelings. We're here to win stability. He smiles once quick. And remember, judges are parents. They know the sound of showing up. We climb the stairs. My tie holds. The box feels lighter than it should. Men in Carhartt jackets walk past us to pay tickets. A couple argues in whispers by the fountain. Michael leans in, plain words, no openings. I push the door and step into the echo. The echo reminds me, this place eats drama for breakfast. We pass security shoes back on and sit at a table that smells faintly of lemon polish and paper. The seal on the wall doesn't blink. Neither does Judge Harrison when he takes the bench. Gray hair, precise glasses, a face that says he's seen every version of I'm trying. The clerk calls our case. My name sounds different in here, heavier like steel on concrete. I put one hand on the binder and feel the rings under the cover. Just right. Harrison scans the first page, then looks over his glasses the way teachers do when the room gets loud. It doesn't. Michael rises, introduces us, and I catch the judge clocking our tabs like he's measuring our claim of order. The court reporter's keys clack a steady beat. We'll proceed, Harrison says, voice even. Keep it concise. My chest loosens a notch. Concise is home field. I think of the blue door of pancakes on Saturdays, of Emily's star stickers marching down the fridge. That's the life I'm defending, and this is the room that decides. Decisions have actors, and Laura plays hers with a careful hand, navy dress, soft makeup, a tissue already in her palm, like she knew a storm was forecast. Her lawyer whispers, slides a folder toward her, and she nods, eyes wet but steady on the judge. I've seen this performance at school plays and PTA meetings. The lines are good because they're half true. She is their mother. The question is not title, it's pattern. She starts with, I've made mistakes, and pivots to, they need me. And the words float like dandelion fluff, real seeds, wrong wind. I keep my eyes on the table edge, breathing slow, remembering Michael's rules. When her lawyer says he's alienating the children, the word spins in the air like a tossed wrench. Judges have seen that wrench. Harrison's face doesn't change. He writes something down. I don't look over. I look down at the tab that says visitation. Laura dabs her eyes. The tissue does its job. It doesn't build a calendar. It can't sign a pickup sheet. It can't read a bedtime story at 8:30 and leave quietly at 9. Calendars can, and ours does. Michael stands, opens the binder to visitation, and hands the judge a clean photocopy. No highlighter fireworks, just boxes and checks. 17 missed of 24 scheduled supervised visits in the last 6 months, he says, letting the math sit. He adds the teacher letter, Jacob waiting by the office twice without pickup, Emily crying during the one time Laura arrived and asked to go home with me instead. He layers counseling notes, anxiety trending down, sleep, improved grades up like shingles on a roof that doesn't leak. Mr. Morrison's pattern is boring, Your Honor, Michael says with a small smile that doesn't reach for charm. On purpose. He slides bank records and the lease copy under a separate tab for context, then walks back the timeline filing emergency custody compliance with every order. My job is to breathe and stay still. Harrison flips pages the way a carpenter checks studs, tap, 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 looking for hollow spots. He doesn't find many. Thank you, the judge says, eyes on the calendar. The room goes quieter than quiet. This is what facts sound like. Thank you, the judge says, eyes still on the calendar, and Michael slides the next exhibit forward, like a foreman laying the next board. Letter from Mrs. Chen, Jacob's teacher, he says. Judge Harrison reads the top line, then the meat. 2 afternoons, Jacob waited at the school office for a pickup that never came. Staff called. No answer. 38 minutes, the first time. 52, the second. The letter doesn't accuse. It accounts dates, times, who signed the log. I don't look at Laura. I look at the table grain because Jacob's face is already in my head, backpack on both shoulders, sneakers towing the tile, pretending not to care. The clerk marks the exhibit. The court reporter's keys click like a metronome for truth. Michael adds the school email printout with the subject line, Concern Re-Pickup Protocol. A small thing unless you've ever watched a kid scan a parking lot for headlights that don't show. Men my age know that scan. We build our days so our kids never have to do it. Harrison underlines a sentence, sets the letter aside, and waits for the next piece. The next piece is quieter, the kind you almost miss if you're hunting drama. Counselor Progress notes, Michael says, handing up a neat packet. Harrison reads the summary's top sheet. First, anxiety symptoms trending down, sleep patterns, improving, fewer school nurse visits for stomach aches. Another line, positive response to predictable routines. Patient reports, Dad always comes. That line lands harder than the numbers. I feel it in my chest like a nail set clean. Michael doesn't sell it. He lets it sit. He points to attendance, every appointment kept on David's weeks, 2 cancellations on Laura's. The theme you'll see Michael says to the bench is predictability. Same house, same bedtime, same pickup line. He doesn't say pancakes or blue door or star stickers, but I hear them anyway because they're built into the pattern. Harrison flips another page, hums something like approval without giving anything away, and stacks the notes on the calendar and the teacher letter. It's not a pile anymore. It's a structure. You can hang weight on structures. You can put kids under them and trust they'll hold. Structures don't please everyone. Laura's lawyer shifts in his chair, then tries a different route. Your Honor, my client is concerned about parental alienation. Laura doesn't wait for the sentence to land. He's turning them against me. She half stands, voice bright with panic and heat. The room inhales. I don't. I keep one hand on the binder and breathe like I'm counting studs in a wall. Michael stays calm. Your Honor. The record reflects encouragement of relationship, and he nods toward the visitation tab, where we logged reminders, sent photos, shared homework, saved for her time. Laura pushes again, aiming for "oh fight" buttons. Control notes my calm. Men my age know that trap, get loud, lose ground. I stay boring on purpose. The court reporter doesn't look up. She just records because that's what records do. Across the aisle, Laura's tissue crumples into a wet knot. Her lawyer touches her elbow, too late to help. The word alienation hangs in the air like smoke after a match. You don't wave it away. You open a window. Michael points back to the calendar. Fresh air. The window opens from the bench. Ms. Morrison, Judge Harrison says, voice flat as a carpenter's square, control yourself. The room settles like sawdust after a cut. He turns a page, draws a neat line with his pen. We are not trying feelings. We are evaluating best interests and demonstrated stability. No one moves. I hear the soft tick of the clock above the seal, the kind of sound you only notice when everything else stops. Harrison stacks the teacher letter with the counselor notes, then taps the attendance grid Michael gave him. 17 of 24 missed visits is math, not mood. He doesn't look at me for sympathy or at Laura for performance. He looks at paper. The bailiff shifts his weight. The court reporter rides the keys. Harrison nods once. Proceed, Mr. Carter. 2 words that are nothing and everything. Michael breathes like a swimmer hitting clean air and reaches for the next tab. I relax my shoulders 1 notch, not victory alignment. A room this serious is telling us what language it speaks. We have it. Facts, sequence, pattern. Keep talking that. We keep talking it. Michael pivots from kids to context. Financial irregularities supporting instability, he says, and hands up the bank summaries, 3 transfers to an outside account, dates aligned with missed visits, memo lines blank. He doesn't accuse, he shows. Next, the housing tab copy of a lease at an apartment complex 2 blocks from Trent's office. Move-in date 2 months pre-separation. Emergency contact, not David. Harrison flips reads again. Michael doesn't color the page. He points to the lines that already have ink numbers addressed signatures. This is not character evidence, he says. It's logistics. It explains absence and supports our request to maintain the current stable arrangement. The phrase lands like a level finding true. Laura's lawyer objects softly, then lets it go when the lease speaks for itself. I picture the binder on our kitchen counter next to a lunchbox and a star sticker sheet, the same story told 2 ways, one for a judge, one for kids. Harrison sets the documents on the growing stack, steeples his fingers for a breath, and looks up. The room leans forward without moving. The room leaned forward without moving, and Judge Harrison met us there. He stacked the papers, drew one clean breath, and spoke in the same even tone he'd used all morning. Having reviewed the record, the court finds the children's best interests are served by maintaining the current stable environment. Sole legal and physical custody to David Morrison. He didn't raise his voice. He raised the standard. The words landed like a beam settling into place. No creak, no wobble, just weight doing what weight does. I didn't pump a fist. I didn't look at Laura. I put my palm on the binder and felt the D-rings through the cover, cool and certain. Michael's hand touched my shoulder once quick, the way men say good job, without breaking the moment. Somewhere behind me, the court reporter's keys kept their small storm. I thought of pancakes of star stickers of that blue door that sticks when it rains. Stability had a sound now, and it sounded like a gavel you didn't have to hear to believe. Harrison kept reading, and we kept breathing. We kept breathing while the judge set the guardrails. Given the documented pattern of missed visitations and financial misconduct, he continued the petition for spousal support is denied. The word denied didn't echo. It sat down and stayed. Visitation remains supervised, he said, with completion of counseling required before any modification is considered. That's not punishment. That's a plan. It said, show up, do the work, earn the change. Michael didn't look at me. He looked at the calendar on the exhibit list, like he was checking a flight path we'd already flown. I nodded once. Supervised visits mean the kids know what time it starts, what time it ends, and who's there in between. Counseling means a grown-up gets a map. Harrison added dates and deadlines the way a carpenter adds screws, quiet, necessary. No speech about it. Compliance from both parties is expected. He finished pen tapping once. Expected is my favorite word in a courtroom. Expect me to be early. Expect me to bring the binder. Expect me to pick up at 3:15 and read 2 stories at 8:30. 2 stories at 8:30, that picture held me steady when Laura broke. She covered her eyes with the tissue that had been waiting in her palm and let the sound out, the one that lives between sorry and mad. Her lawyer guided her toward the exit, murmuring words that do their best in hallways. I closed the binder so the rings clicked once and turned just enough to meet her eyes. Not to win. To end it right. I hope you find peace, I said. 4 words level, not a victory lap. A boundary that wishes someone well from the other side of a line. For a second, she looked like the woman I used to plan weekends with. Then the moment passed. Michael was already sliding the signed order into a sleeve, clean corners label straight, because that's what we do. We file what matters and let the noise expire. The bailiff opened a door. The clerk stamped a copy. I followed Michael's shoulder through the hush and felt something I hadn't felt in months, room in my ribs to take a full breath. That breath met daylight when we stepped outside. Columbus sun on a cold day has a way of making every edge look honest. I held the court order like a man holds a map he can finally trust. 2 pages, 1 signature, a different future. Michael asked if I needed a ride. I shook my head. Walk a bit, I said. He nodded and left me to the sidewalk and the sound of traffic doing what traffic does. I thought of the kitchen calendar with pancakes. Saturday scrawled in block letters of Emily's stars, of Jacob's silent U, of Madison's hand, hooking my elbow at the park. I slid the order into my bag beside the binder and felt the weight settle the way a tool settles in a box meant to be there. At the corner, a bus hissed. A jaybird argued with a light pole, and a guy in a work jacket pushed a dolly through a loading dock. Moving weight, the simple way, step, set, repeat. I turned toward home. The blue door would stick. I'd lift and pull. It would give. That's how doors work when you've earned the key. It would give. That's what I told myself walking in, and it did. That afternoon, I set a nail above my desk and hung the court order where a calendar used to live. Plain frame, steady glass. To the right, the 3 crayon drawings we'd taped up months ago: Madison's house with the big chimney, Jacob's blue door drawn almost as wide as the siding, Emily's sky exploding with every color she owns. I stepped back and saw it the way a judge would if judges were allowed to be fathers for a minute, 1 page that protects 3 dreams. I traced the signature with a fingertip, then let my hand fall to Jacob's door and Emily's sky. Dinner was simple. The binder went back by the coffee maker. The night routine clicked like a well-tuned truck teeth pajamas. 2 stories at 8:30. Before lights out, I told them what I learned the hard way. Love protects with truth and boundaries. And now I want to ask you, if you were standing at that blue door, hearing the knock at midnight, would you open it or hold the frame? Comment your choice below. Open or close. Because every choice builds a family or breaks one. If this story hit home, tap subscribe. Tomorrow, I'll open another door most men never talk about, and you'll see what's on the other side.